For hello and welcome to the Martin King Luther Jr. lesson. And so this will be talk about Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech and within the main cause, the main purposes, and even the true heart of the expression about this speech. And I'm your presenter, Elston Chan, and this is my partners, George, Lucy,
Hello.
Yao,
Hello.
and also Boston.
Hello.
And now let's talk about what's the comments we have. First, we have to talk about the history background, and then we have a video about the speech. And the first thing is about speech analysis related to our video. And the fourth final thing is on conclusion. What is the speech? What is the presentation was going on for today? Now, let's begin. George, what's the history background?
Yes, allow me to introduce. Martin Luther King, aka MLK, was born in 1929, January the 15th. He's American and he is also a pacer and a civil rights leader of America back then. About his legacy, he once solved the case of Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, and he had a speech in the South Christian Leadership Conference in 1957. In 1963, he got a letter from Birmingham jail, and the same year, he addressed his most famous speech, I Have a Dream. In the next year, he had won the Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent resistance movement. And in 1967, he gave a speech opposing the Vietnam War, but later in 1968, the very year next to the speech opposing the Vietnam War, he was assassinated in Tennessee.
And so this speech is talk about Martin Luther King Jr.'s important speech. That is called I Have a Dream from 28th of August 1963. He's going to speak the speech in the place at Washington, who is in front of the black people, progressive crowds. And so the main goal of the speech, there are three of them. First, racism, economic, and civil equality awareness in the United States of America. It's because there are a lot of conflicts on the different race in different nationalities, and even they're in the same country. And so to make more people to know more about the race, they should be educated. And the second one is to end up the racism in the United States of America. It's because in the past there are lots of racism conflicts during the time, and Martin King Luther Jr. wants to stop them because it is very important that there are too a lot of violence. This case should be stopped. And that's thing, and another thing we'll be talking about in my part is about to advocate the nonviolent struggle. Well, the speech will be talk about those three things. And the main messages are no violence, no discrimination. Well, there are two things that he has to be stopped in one day. And the call of equality and freedom. We'll just talk about the black people needs to be free. That's so that another thing is stop slavery and black people carrying, which means that slaves should be stopped. And black people and white people should be together. And so let's talk about the video first, okay? And we chose 3 minutes to talk about this video. And so let's enjoy the classic video in 1960, shall we?
Sure, go ahead.
Memory is everything. Without it, we are blind.
This is the team that's going to take down the most dangerous wizard in over a century.
Correct. 3 points to Hufflepuff.
4月21號，怪獸與鄧不利多的秘密。
大家好，我是 Amy 的妈妈，我叫 Amy 啊，在 Lingo Ace 学英语已经学了2个月了。她呀，
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day. This will be the day with all of God's children.
So, do you enjoy our video? And now it's time for the important part. It's speech and analysis. And so, there are 2 aspects that we should talk. But first, let's talk about the first aspect. The first aspect is parallelism. And so, introduction, what is parallelism? Parallelism is an easy-use rhetorical device, which saying GMS. This is called grammatical structure in the 2 sentences above. And the stress should be paired because it uses those 2 grammar, same grammatical structure, which has 2, which in size. The sentence should be the same as 1. But if you use with the first sentence which, and the next sentence is also should be which. So it will be relevant which the function is. And in this speech, I have a dream. The paragraphs in the climax of speech were started to use in I have a dream in the first sentence begins. For example, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and develop the true meaning of its creed, which means that Martin Luther King Jr. wants to change the society in the United States of America will be better in the future. That is because of the past, which the discrimination always happened. And I have a dream that one day on these red hills, the sons of the former slaves and the former slaves of owners will be able to sit down together at the table brotherhood, which means that black people and white people will join together in harmony. They can do their things together, act together, play together, and even sing a song together, just like the going to the concert, sing with harmony, with the harmony elements. And so, in conclusion for the paragraph structure, and well, this is the paragraph structure, and the paragraphs we're using, I have a dream in the beginning of the paragraph, which means that Martin Luther King Jr. has a dream about the racist, which is going to tell everyone at Washington, D.C., even though his dream is very important to him. And it's very important to the government and even the citizens. And so Martin King Luther Jr., before that, he thinks that racism should be stopped. And the people in nation will join together and happy ever after. And so he's very important for the citizens, the government, to care about it. And so Lucy, what's to talk about the sentence structure?
Okay, in this, I have a dream speech. One of the paragraphs used with this phrase in the beginning of each sentence is, with this phrase, we'll be able to hail out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this phrase, we'll be able to transform the jungly discourse of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this phrase, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Now let's look at the first sentence. With this phrase, we will be able to hail out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. This means the discriminated people should go out from despair. And the second sentence, with this phrase, we will be able to transform the jungly discourse of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. It shows us the discrimination environment will be changed into environment of peace and quiet. The last sentence, with this phrase, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And we can know from that the different races in the United States will be united as one. Now let's move on to aspect 2, ethos.
So, what is ethos? First, about ethos, we shouldn't interpret this word in its literal meaning, like an ethical approach, but it's about the appeal to ethical and using the credibility to persuade your audience. There are majorly 3 ways to show your credibility. First, your messages has to have quality. And the second, you have to know your speech and also your audience well, so that you can communicate with them better. And third, you have to own a better reputation so that your audience will trust you.
Firstly, in this I have a dream speech. At the very beginning, Martin Luther King said, "I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. The sentence have his position and his sense of belonging stated in the first place as a trustworthy friend struggling alongside his comrades.
And also in this speech, there was a paragraph where "we" was used frequently. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads to the palace of justice. In our process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst of freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle in the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. So Martin Luther King here addressed the mass protesters, my people, showing his role of leadership in the movement. He also emphasized himself as part of the group using "we" approach. So he advocates for non-violent resistance.
So in this "I Have a Dream" speech, there's a paragraph where he uses his past experiences. So 50 years ago, a great American, in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Anticipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who have been seared in the flame of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of Negro is still sadly crippled by the massacres of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro still lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of a material prosperity. And 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in an exile of his own island. And so we came here today to dramatize a shameful condition. So in his speech, Martin Luther King frequently looked back at the moments of American history and refers to the leaders who laid the foundation of free America. This adds the ethical appeal to his speech. However, King's speech is also rich in imaginary, and his phrases is frequently used to paint the picture of a beautiful dreamlike nation where peace and prosperity is abound. So Martin Luther King has dreamed of a cohesive society that will not be easily to fall to the prey of discrimination or stay divided along the lines of color. So his big disappointment is that the promises made during Lincoln's time has never become a reality. And instead, African Americans has become being fed to more fake promises.
And so it's time for the conclusion. And yeah, what's our conclusion?
Now, this speech has used two aspects, parallelism and ethos. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech talks about that the discrimination of the US should be stopped. We should respect other people with different races and working together as a team.
And so, in addition of the we should respect others in different races and working together as a team, and I think that Hong Kong nowadays, Hong Konger and the Chinese are getting more violence and getting more arguments in there. And so, and now I really think that this discrimination should be stopped. And so I think the government should help in this problem within. That will be should the Hong Kong girls and Chinese should be respectful of each other. Will have no violence and no arguments. They can join as a team, just like the Chinese Republic has done. All the races in China collide as one. And so now it's time for the question and answers and even discussion time. And so we're going to talk about the two questions. Let's see and find out. First, in the question 1, what does Martin King Luther Jr. wanted to stop? In that case, let's talk about the past. The stop is that to end up the racial segregation. Well, in the past, there's a lot of discrimination of Black people before 1960s. And just like the white people use the fire hoses to spray into the Black people in the past in the United States. It's so terrible that imagine, and even there was a civil war in 1950s, which is the white people and the Black people were going to have conflicts. Well, in 1960s, it is the promised decade. Why? It is because civil rights, as in 1964, after Martin Luther Jr. has been spoken the speech, and he's going to do some ads in the Black people. For example, promote the Black people for jobs, and this makes the Black people and white people to be talented as one.
Our second question is why did Martin Luther King quoted so many sentences from the Bible, and also how would it affect his speech? And our answer is, first, he is a devout Christian, which is common sense, everybody knows that. And secondly, roughly 80 African Americans are Christian back then and even now. So the Bible can serve as their common language. Third, it also shows his identity as a kind, faithful, and fraternal Baptist. Like he has said, will be able to transform the jangling discord of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. As long as the other Black people, we're all human and we have our same hope, which is to build a more harmonious world. And yes, that's why he has quoted so many sentences from the Bible.
And so it's time to end our presentation. Do you like our presentation? I sure you did. And so it is time for us to say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.